Speaking of Shevchenko, what do you think of this nonsensical women compare the transgender competing into the sport? Do you think that we're gonna have to deal with that in the sport of MMA?
Well, it happened in MMA before it happened in any other sport, right?
Yeah,
So I will say this is that like it's fucked. It's completely fucked in any sport.
yeah,
You know what I mean? It shouldn't happen. But the reason here's one thing that people don't consider that in MMA, in order for a woman to compete against, or like a transgender woman to compete against a biological woman, it has to go through several layers of approval. The athletic commissioner has to agree to it,
yeah,
and then the opponent has to agree to it, right? So it's like nobody's getting hoodwinked here. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like there are a couple levels of like these things have to happen in agreement, and like I'm not saying that it's fair, but it went through a process of approval. Whereas like if you're a college athlete, for example, or you're an Olympic level weightlifter,
Yeah.
right? Nobody's asking your opinion. You're not getting any choice on this, and that is not fair.
Yeah, exactly. 100, I like the way you put that because I don't think a lot of people see that. Or if a biological woman, accepts that risk,
Mhm.
I think that's fair. The person is consenting and saying yes, I will compete. And I do know a lot of female fighters who say fuck it, I'll do it. Uh,
Well,
you know what I mean? Just out of their competitive nature, they want like they train with men all the time, so they're like fuck it, I'll fight a transgender athlete. But now that's a fight. You know what I mean? Now we're talking about like for example the swimmer woman slash male Leah Thomas or whatever it was. Like try to justify that she was like 200th when she was competing as a man
mhm.
and first competing as a woman. Like that doesn't she didn't get better swimmer within a year. Like she didn't
No.
become a champion NCAA swimmer within a year. It was simply because of physical attributes, and I don't think. And like you said, that the other women weren't consented on that. They weren't asked if that was what they wanted. It was just like, here, too bad, so sad. This is now part of the sport.
Yep, and to have everything that you've worked for as an athlete, especially as a woman, because I feel like you've got to do more as a woman to kind of earn respect in sport,
Yeah,
to have that shut down and just, even if you're like not going to come in first in that race, it's such like a distraction. It's such like, it doesn't, I don't know, like I feel like it's just completely unnecessary. And it's like, well, why? Why make things unfair for so many people and polarize this so much when it's like the solution is just to not have it happen at all.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And that
create.
doesn't mean that it's not fair. It doesn't mean that it's not inclusive.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly,
it
and
doesn't that doesn't mean that. And like that's the thing too is that with Fallon Fox, the transgendered fighter, she lost to Ashley Evans Smith, and Ashley Evans Smith went on to have a UFC career.
yeah,
You know what I mean? And like again, imagine how sadistic this would be if you got into a cage, you're a woman, and you look at the woman across from the cage from you, and you're like, huh, looks a little strange. Like this girl is kind of jacked. Like
yeah,
this is weird. And then you go and get TKO'd in the first round. And then, you read a story on MMA Junkie the next day saying that, like, oh, Fallon Fox, first transgender fighter. And you're like, what?
what?
And there's nobody had mentioned it to you.
Yeah,
And you're like, well, you can't bring it up because it's a violation of this person's rights,
yeah,
right? And you would be like, wait a minute, I might just have potential brain damage. Nobody told me. Nobody even asked my opinion. Like,
exactly.
what the fuck is this, right? That would be fucking crazy. So people do ask my opinion how it like pertains to MMA, and I always tell them like I have a way better or a way easier time dealing with it in MMA because you have to agree to fight. Nobody can
Yeah,
make you do that,
no, yeah,
right?
exactly.
In college sports, that's like, especially with the swimmer who's like making headlines now, nobody's got a choice. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Everybody knows that she shouldn't be there, but nobody can say anything. The people on staff at her school, the people that work for NCAA, their jobs are on the line. They can't
yeah,
say anything because they'll literally get fired.
yeah, and they
You know what I
well,
mean? And it's just like a culture that's been created to make it impossible to have a rational conversation with anybody about it.
Well, and to kind of sum this whole kind of situation up, I think that the thing to take away is that it's actually, if you're fighting for equality and for especially for women and for women to have the same opportunity, like you're literally detracting from that same fight that they were fighting for like the last 20, 30 years, to be recognized the same as sports, to get paid the same amount as men in leagues. And now you're allowing that kind of transition to happen. Everything that they fought for the last 20 years, to receive that notoriety, to be able to be viewed as elite athletes along with the men athletes,
Yeah,
it's being kind of ripped away from women. And it kind of, as a dad of a young girl coming up, like there's no way in fucking hell I would even, like, if I wouldn't let that happen. Like if she was happened to go to a tournament when she was 16, 17, and there's a dude there wanting to compete against her because he decided that, you know, last year he wanted to switch, which is his personal decision. I don't give a shit. That's another discussion. But I'm gonna tell her no. I'm
yeah,
gonna say don't do it. And even if she's competitive and wants it, like, Dad, just let me do this, I'm like, no, because there's no win for you as a female. There's no
yeah,
win. You win and they're gonna make an excuse. You lose and you got beat by a dude. What? And at the end of the day, it doesn't even matter what sport you're in. You know, you can. There's physical consequences too, right?
yeah.
You could get hurt, right? You can, if it's a contact sport, you can get hurt. If there's, you know, it's just a discussion we shouldn't be having, but apparently, unfortunately, we do have it, and I feel like it's going to set women's sport back, you know, a few years, especially amateur women's sport. Professional, I don't think it's going to creep too far into it, but amateur women, the women who are, like you said, in the NCAA, it's got like, imagine you're a little girl dreaming of winning, and then all of a sudden, it's just stripped away from you because some dude decides he wants to compete against you,
Yep.
and
And
he's
you know what?
allowed.
So another part that's unfair is that even if like you're a college swimmer and you do win the race that this woman is in, the entire narrative around the sport now is about her self-image.
Yeah,
It's not about the sport itself.
no,
It's not
definitely.
fair, you
Yeah,
know?
and